New daily podcast from Bloomberg and iHeartRadio that tackles everything from Bitcoin to Bored Apes. Each weekday, Bloomberg reporters and experts from every corner of the industry discuss the latest in cryptocurrencies and explore how it impacts our lives, our politics, and our culture.
How many machines would I need to buy, not that I will, to kind of mine Bitcoin effectively?
Like tens of thousands of
Tens
machines.
of thousands. That's way more than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Listen to Bloomberg Crypto on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Talking about a lot of things here today, and not going to be joined by Stephanie as we usually would today. She actually got put on a special assignment today. Some other big things happening in and around the region that we will certainly be looking to talk with her more about when we get to here. But we are a lot of commentary coming in about SCOTUS and other things, and that is a big story happening and affecting this area directly today. So that will be our interview today. Instead, going to be talking about an expert in, well, tribal law, Indian gaming, those kind of situations, and what today's released Supreme Court decision in the case of Isleta del Sur Pueblo versus Texas means, what it might mean in the future, and what it could mean right here. So we'll be getting into all of that as well, as Calvin Williams is joining us over there. And John Hertz, kind of SCOTUS related, I guess, saying that Escobar voted against protecting the SCOTUS justices, proving again she is a traitor. Strong words for that. They're also chiming in with us and dropping those likes over on the Facebook page. We do appreciate Monica Cervantes, Calvin Williams, Robbie Flores, and Flaco Jimenez. We certainly do appreciate it because, well, being people involved in the discussion is, I think, one of the only ways we're going to continue to get through this and, well, know what is actually going on. So we'll continue talking about that, but that's only one of the major issues, of course, on the docket today, coming out pretty close to this hour. Again, not exactly, but that whole Fed raise rate 75 basis points, which is another fancy way of saying 0.75%. But yeah, those definitely going to be having some kind of impact, and what that might mean for supply, demand, etc., I think is probably the most significant part here. So we'll certainly get into that as well. And yeah, just a whole lot of stuff going on today. Another very busy news day, I will certainly say. And even coming out more or less right now, another set of polling showing maybe a tighter race going on between in the gubernatorial sector here in Texas between, of course, incumbent Governor Greg Abbott and challenger Democrat Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, former congressman from El Paso. So we'll probably get into that a little bit more here. So that's just a few of the things. Calvin Williams asking if now would be a good time to refinance. Now, I want to preface this by saying I am by no means a financial expert, but in short, no. And there's a different word that if you take all the words out from the middle of fire truck, you might get the word I'm going for. Let's just say fire truck no would be the way I would actually want to say that, because I mean, you know, depending on your goals, let's say that you have a goal to get a really nice high interest rate. If that's your goal in life, to just bleed money away, you know what? Sure, this might be a great time to refinance. So getting into that, of course, the entire point of what this is coming out of the Federal Reserve and among others, you know, being announced there of what this is going to mean. It's, well, complicated would be putting it at very, very big understatement. But yeah, 75 basis points, the largest increase in the base level interest rates. Now, of course, this has been an issue going on for, well, frankly, years now, in that the Fed really has a couple of major tools, something I actually did study back in college, believe it or not. But if you're really trying to see what they can do besides, influencing opinions, that kind of a thing, they can either deal with the funds reserve rate or interest rates. Fund reserve rate is essentially how much expansion there is in the money supply, what a bank is required to actually keep on hand or in their reserve, since in hand is a little bit misnomer these days. There's not terrific amount of actual physical these days. It's a lot of transactions and online money, so to speak. But they're required to keep a certain level, and then they can lend everything out beyond that level to other institutions, and that's where you really see major expansion of the money supply. So by changing that, they can finagle that a little bit. But the one that you hear the most about is these interest rates, because they go into just about everything downstream from them. I mean, you might get that interest rate, the one that they have it at, but mostly that's the starting point for where you're going to find basically any bit of lending going to coming downstream from it. Like you're talking about your mortgages, your personal loans, your credit cards, your auto loans, all of that. This is what essentially is a hand on the tiller, you might consider it. And sure, it might be setting a direction. It can certainly be put a lot more serious than that. RJ asking on the Tigua case, are the poker rooms open yet? Got to pay them higher interest rates, don't you know? And sure, it might may seem like you might be better off at the tables than not. Don't worry, we're going to get into that about what this decision might be. Again, if you wanted to find it for yourself, it is, an interesting situation. But, answer in short, to not take too much thunder out of the interview that we are going to be having coming up with you, talking with Ben Kappelman of law firm involved in actual law and Indian gaming laws here with Dorsey and Co. Might be worth your time to look at it and see. But in short, to not quibble around too much more, no, not quite soon, but we'll certainly get into the specifics here with it. RJ also saying there's a lot of tools, but people don't necessarily look that way. John Hurt saying auto loans don't generally follow this. They are normally 1 to 0% if you have great credit. I mean, yes and no. I remember for some reason doing a research project looking at archival footage back in the day, back in still my TV days. I was coming across those talking about these low rates, 3.25%, and me having grown up in the era of 0% financing. I was like, wait, what? What are these numbers? That's not usually how those sound like. So it does change a bit. So again, it's kind of downstream, and again, it's a hand on the tiller, and they can do less with it if they want it. But I don't think, I'm just going to assume right now, not knowing much about what's going on with the mentality of an auto seller right now. I mean, we used to think that the real crazies were those in the used car market, of course, there's a whole, quip about it, used car salesman mentality. But seriously, just keeping stuff in stock and in inventory is a little bit nuts right now. The closest explanation I can give to it is that we had the vehicle that was the primary driver right up until about the point that it started not working anymore. Not that it wouldn't even start, but that it had weird transmission problems. One that we were working with an actual auto shop on, but unfortunately that shop apparently closed while we were in the middle of it. So we were left with wondering, okay, are we going to continue working or trying to figure out who else we can work with? Because we've gotten estimations on how to repair this that were just way overblown, and the shop we were working with is saying, no, I think there's some more reasonable things we can do. So missing that, left in a situation of what the heck are we going to do? So we made the decision to okay, let's get rid of this vehicle. Let's be done with it. And went and took it to one of the, major resellers. I'm not going to name a particular name here, but online linked is what I'm going to say. That might put an idea in your mind. And we were expecting a percentage of Blue Book value, but the situation in that area is so crazy right now. We were actually given roughly triple Blue Book. And we were perfectly upfront and clear that no, this vehicle has issues. It has had a transmission repair previously, but more seem to be cropping up. But they were very interested, I guess, during their own inspection, decided that, I think it'll be fine and that they can fix it. And so they did. And we were mildly surprised about that. So long story short, yeah, auto is weird, always has been, and is particularly weirder these days. But again, I think one of the major impacts we're going to be seeing from these interest rate hikes is, besides rates and borrowing in general, auto being weird again, going up. I think that at least a little bit of this, it's targeted at inflation. again, one of the highest raises in literal decades, is pretty significant. And also, it's going to be trying to tamp down on demand, which doesn't, I mean, again, this is not necessarily a tool that the Fed doesn't have. You go to a barber, you're going to get your hair cut. If you're looking to deal with supply, demand, and inflation, the Fed is going to adjust interest rates. But to say that, well, we're just going to make it so that it's more expensive and therefore less people will be willing to buy, I'm not sure that that is going to have the impact that is, well, would usually be have, because it's not just that, well, money is cheap, easy to borrow, people spending too much, that kind of a thing. There's a lot of other issues going on with inflation, increase in the money supply, and lack of availability of goods and services to an extent, but not even like luxuries. Like, we're not talking about the cigar, knockoff Habana market here. We're talking about basic foodstuffs increasing in price to a mildly concerning level. I'll just say that for now. And so we're saying, oh, well, we'll increase demand or decrease demand by increasing the cost it takes to get the money. So if there's not more happening to actually deal with the supply issues, I have serious reservations about what efficacy this is actually going to have. Calvin Williams saying, just did that on his Cadillac. They offered me twice what I thought it was worth. I'm not saying that I swore when they gave me the estimation, but I really, really thought about it in my case here. And RJ saying goodbye to free to cheap money. I mean, there was a lot of refinancing that happened over these last couple of years, or home purchases because of those historically low rates. And another way to think about the way, particularly the Fed sets rates, is they've only got as much as they've got left. Meaning if they're already down near very low, they can't cut it below zero on their part. So they have to reload, rearm, so to speak. And, well, I don't think that there are more intelligent people than commenting on this, but the idea of there being a recession potential coming out of this, yeah, I think that you can see it from here. Storm clouds on the horizon, certainly. We got to take that first break of the hour here right now. Coming out of this break, we're going to be talking about that case. It's a Supreme Court case announced today, one of several coming out that has, well, in this specific instance, very local impact, specifically dealing with the Isleta del Sur Pueblo, the Tigua tribe, and what that might mean going forward. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot more coming up, a lot more to get to, and a lot more we'll be talking about. So stay tuned to Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. Whatever might be going on with the serious news we're talking about, coming together as a family and celebrating the loved ones that you've got near or far is, well, always a pretty good idea. And what better way to do it than around the dinner table and, well, even around the grill or whatever have you. Food, family go very well together. So if you're thinking about maybe those Father's Day presents, just ever such a slight wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you might want to be thinking about what is available from our friends over at Enhanced Flavors, and that's enhanced with a D, flavors.com is where you can find them, because they have a great selection, local supply available of extra virgin olive oils, flavored olive oils, and of course, balsamic vinegar straight from the Modena province of Italy. Otherwise, it doesn't count. And if you want to get them delivered right to your door, again, from the local area, you can find them online at enhancedflavors.com or out in the community, particularly at farmers markets in the area. More recently, they've been out at the Country Club Farmers Market, but make no mistake, you can always find their full supply and even other things. They got some interesting pastas I need to look at a little bit more closely over on the website, enhancedflavors.com. Spice up your life by going to Enhanced Flavors. That's enhanced with a D, flavors.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A stalled vehicle's blocking the turnaround lane, Gateway West at Zaragoza. Large semi blocking the right shoulder, I-10 westbound at Joe Battle. An injury accident, Alameda Avenue eastbound at Gateway. And a crash with injury, Sun Valley Drive west of McCombs at Wilshire. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Ben Ferguson Podcast.
Coming up on the Ben Ferguson Podcast, Republicans sell you out on your Second Amendment rights. So who are these fake Republicans? I'm going to expose them all so that you can stand up for your rights by demanding they back down. Download the Ben Ferguson Podcast now.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. it finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/Screen for Life for more information.
Chances are you're jamming in your car right now. And since Liberty Mutual customizes car insurance so you only pay for what you need, Limu and I are going to show you some safe car dance moves. Hit it. Everybody, check your blind spots real quick. Now hands on the wheel. Put them 10 in 2 and move your head like a bird do. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show. We got the comments going strong over on the social media right now, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, where you can find us there. Just look for search for us under those names on those platforms here. Some conversation about representation, relative holds on certain districts. John Browse has been specifically saying Escobar had better watch out. Flores won a decades-long Democratic congressional seat in South Texas. Maybe El Paso will follow. And Calvin Williams following up saying centrally long, wasn't it? And John Browse saying it was exactly 100 years. So, yeah, there's some... You take things for granted, and they might be granted away from you. RJ also on the actual interest rate saying sold mobile homes in the 80s at 13%, give or take. Site homes were a little bit lower. Yeah, some of the rates we've been looking at in current expansion potentials, etc., been just super volatile, and I think we just managed to lock one in right before this. So, yeah, and Augustine Pimentel shouting he's happy to be part of the 1%. Must be nice. Let's just just don't do something on my head and call it rain is all I'm going to say there. Anyway, getting into our interview here today. Yeah, again, must be nice to not have financial worries. But for the rest of us out there, one of the things that, well, may or may not have actually an impact on that issue, but will for a very specific, most likely, set of the population here in El Paso, you may be ever so slightly familiar with the ongoing legal conditions involving the Isleta del Sur Pueblo, more commonly locally known as the Tigua tribe, and of course, what has been going on with their operations in a variety of ways. Speaking Rock Casino and now the Speaking Rock Entertainment Center, the casino being at issue previously, primarily with the state of Texas, and an interesting set of, well, not even just state, but federal rules and laws involved with it. So the decision today coming down in the Isleta del Sur Pueblo versus the state of Texas in a 5-4 decision, well, essentially affirming that the law that has been in place governing, well, gaming for the tribe there and in general the state of Texas is not the correct one. So we'll get into those details. A whole lot more. I was able to speak with an expert in Indian, gaming affairs and such, having dealt with them in his own professional life and with the firm he is a part of. So here is that interview about the subject and, some of the interesting details on it. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Ben Kappelman, partner with Dorsey and Whitney. Thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So this is an interesting case. I mean, we've been paying, well, a lot of attention is being paid to this recent Supreme Court session and the decisions coming out of it. They have been trickling out as they expect to do, but the ultimate decision in this one, the Isleta del Sur Pueblo versus the state of Texas, is, well, one of the more locally impacting ones. Is a brief overview when you're describing to someone who may not have a total legal background here. What do you say are some of the most important factors of this case?
So this is a big victory for the Pueblo after decades of losing on this issue in the courts. As I know in the 1980s, Congress passed a statute that had some language about whether the Pueblo could conduct gaming on their land. And in the 1990s and the 2000s, the federal courts interpreted that to give the state of Texas jurisdiction to enforce all of its gambling laws on the Pueblo's gaming operation. And today the Supreme Court said, no, that's wrong. That's not what Congress meant back in the 1980s. And so the Pueblo will be subject to the same federal regulatory regime that hundreds of other tribes across the country have to comply with when they conduct their gaming operations. And the state of Texas does not have a role in that.
And there's really, as you kind of mentioned there, a couple of pieces of federal legislation that were maybe mildly in conflict with each other here. Was in describing that. What is the one that's ultimately this 5-4 decision ends up affirming?
Yeah, so there was a statute in the 1980s that applied specifically to the Isleta del Sur and the Alabama and Coushatta Indian tribes in Texas. And the history there is that the state of Texas had decided it was no longer going to handle what's called the federal trust responsibility for those tribes. And so Congress had to do something to have the federal government reassert control. So it passed that statute. And then that created this question about gaming and whether for those two tribes, that statute creates a special rule for just them, or whether they should be subject to the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, which is a different statute that applies in general terms to tribes across the country with regard to their gaming.
Just foundationally speaking, we are talking about an interesting situation when it comes to tribes in Texas specifically. Of course, in our area in far west Texas here, people may be also familiar with New Mexico, and it's obviously very different set of laws when it comes to Indian lands and, again, Indian gaming, as we're talking about here. People may have even visited those. I know someone who did so last weekend, as a matter of fact, going up there and taking part in that. So the difference here, I mean, among other things, these are the only two federally recognized tribes in the state of Texas, which leads to, again, some peculiarities that have exemplified here, basically.
Yeah, and that's, there is a role to play in for states in Indian gaming. And so that's why, you see different things at different states, like in New Mexico. The Indian Gaming Regulatory Act divides different types of casino games into three categories. And the type of gaming that the Pueblo are engaging in is called Class 2 gaming. And tribes are allowed to do that without the consent of the state that they're in, as long as the state allows the same types of games in some form. And that's what Texas does with bingo. There are a lot of rules and only certain entities can engage in bingo, but bingo is not wholesale prohibited in Texas. And therefore the Pueblo are able to also run bingo games. That's what the court has said today.
So again, the amount, I mean, it's not exactly a floodgates kind of moment, but again, it's coming at the end of a very long process. One of the things in describing this to someone else today, they said, wait, there's a new case? And I had to tell them, no, this is the same case that's been going on, well, better part of my lifetime anyway, at this point.
That's right. Yeah, this is the same dispute that goes back to the 1990s. And so that's part of what's so significant about the court's decision, is that it resolves this long-running issue that until now the Pueblo had not been winning.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Ben Kappelman, partner with Dorsey and Whitney. Want to find anything about them, what they do, and their work, dorsey.com. That's DORSEY.com. .com there. So one of the things, and this may be a misconception on my part, because I remember being told about this as a very young man on what was going on this as the local, of course, Speaking Rock Casino and associated facilities from the Isleta del Sur Pueblo Tigua Indians, as they're often commonly known around here as well, going over that they had started this up because essentially the state of Texas was, as you kind of mentioned there, allowing some kind of gaming, and this may be a misconception that I've been harboring for years. I'm actually thinking about it now, that because essentially one of the core arguments was that the state of Texas was allowing gaming of some kind. Again, you referenced bingo, but that at least one of the parts I was told growing up was also the fact that a lottery exists in Texas, that Texas does have gaming, even if not necessarily casinos regularly, that therefore that was essentially the core of the argument that the Tigua tribe was dealing with there. So obviously much more legally complicated than that, but it sounds like there is some kernel to that mildly anecdotal tale, I was told.
Yeah, and that's a critical distinction under federal law. So there are at least a couple of states, Hawaii being an example, that prohibits all form of gaming. And so in that circumstance, if you're a tribe in that state, then you can't conduct gaming either, because the state has chosen to prohibit it. Now, in a state like Texas, where the state has effectively opened the door by permitting gaming under certain circumstances, that gives tribes in that state the right to conduct their own gaming operations in a way that is regulated by the federal government.
So in the immediate sense here, this kind of the decision as it has come down with that 5-4 decision, again, with Justice Gorsuch writing for the majority in this case, I'm sure a lot more breakdown will be done on that. But in the immediate sense, with the transfer of the authority from the one much narrower and Texas-specific federal law to the more broad one regulating, well, the rest of the states when it comes to this, what are some of the near-term impacts you would expect to come from this, and what might even just be happening here locally?
Sure. Well, I think this is more certainty for the Pueblo. Like many tribal governments, my understanding is that the Pueblo uses gaming revenue to fund their health and welfare programs for their members, for their government. And because tribes across the country have often limited ability to impose revenue generating measures like property taxes that a state or a local government might be able to do, that's a critical source of funds to help take care of the tribe's members and fund their operations. So it's probably a sigh of relief for the Pueblo that they're going to be able to continue using those revenues to support their people. And it also opens the door for discussions that the Pueblo might initiate with the state of Texas about whether the state would agree that they could expand their gaming even further.
So that's one of, I think, the also immediate questions there is that what will this actually, end up opening it up to? Because, of course, notably, there aren't any other, what you might consider a casino in Texas outside of this. Any of the ads that you may see if you go to other parts of the state might be, come and gamble with us. It's a short 6-hour drive north when you get to Oklahoma or those kind of situations around here. So when it actually comes to this, the kind of facilities that have run, if people who have been through it may have seen quite the shift in availability and even specific offerings within, again, the Speaking Rock Casino and the associated entertainment venues that they have now further diversified and developed here. You were mentioning those specific kinds of gaming. So bingo, but what other things might actually be allowable, at least under this decision, pending any further, discussions or debates with the state on that?
Sure. So this decision says that the Pueblo can engage in Class 2 gaming. Class 2 gaming is bingo, and when there's bingo on the premises, other sort of similar games like pull tabs that are not kind of backed by the house. If the Pueblo wanted to, and I know they have in the past, they could approach the state of Texas about entering into what's called a gaming compact. And when a state and a tribe agree on a gaming compact, that permits the tribe to engage in Class 3 gaming. Class 3 gaming is your what a lot of people think of as true casino gaming, blackjack, other games that you play at the table that are you receive your money from the house. And the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act requires states to negotiate in good faith with tribes if a tribe wants to initiate those compact discussions. And those are negotiations that play out all across the country, and there are different ways that can get resolved. So that would be another option that now is on the table for the Pueblo going forward.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Ben Kappelman, partner with Dorsey and Whitney. Again, any information about them, the work they do, dorsey.com, DORSI.com. We got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, continue talking with Ben here about what this might mean further going forward in some of those possible situations, any precedent impacts, and what might also be seen near term here. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. The Tigua tribe in El Paso can legally operate bingo-based games at their Speaking Rock Entertainment Center. That's according to a ruling today by the U.S. Supreme Court. The 5-4 ruling is a legal victory for the Isleta del Sur Pueblo. They've been in a legal battle with the state of Texas for the past 30 years over the legality of gambling on tribal land. A request to use hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer money without voter approval was discussed by a meeting held by officials with UMC's Board of Managers. The managers talked about asking El Paso County commissioners for approval in a notice that would issue certificates of obligation. KFOX 14 obtained a recording of that meeting and learned that the certificates of obligation requested would be in the amount of up to $400 million. A hospital spokesman today said the exact amount would be revealed Thursday in a meeting with county commissioners. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
After unseasonably hot weather over the last few days, our temperatures will start to cool with numbers closer to seasonal values. Expect a mostly clear and quiet night with light winds and temperatures in the mid-70s. Coming up tonight, we'll talk about cooler temperatures heading our way, plus we could see a few more storms across the area. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blind shades and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop blind.
Getting together, close moment. Let's go to
Saturday. Argentinas. Donovan Drawn. We're joined here again by Ben Kappelman, partner with Dorsey and Whitney. Thank you very much for sticking around with us.
My pleasure.
So, one correction we need to make real quick. There are actually 3 federally recognized tribes here in Texas. Again, a small number, but we would be remiss to not mention that there is that third.
That's right, the Kickapoo traditional tribe.
Okay, so mentioning it, not part of this case, obviously, or the law rather involving it, but then that, of course, brings up the question about the precedent that comes here. But just in general, the experience you all have, you're not a part of this current Supreme Court case, but deal with similar issues around the country, right?
That's right. We're not involved in this case, but our firm frequently represents tribes in both litigation and advising them on things like gaming compliance issues and helping them navigate the really complicated federal regulatory regime that exists that governs Indian gaming.
So I think it's decently fair to say that Texas has, again, because of that very specific law that had been previously passed, naming, again, those 2 tribes, that there had been some anomalies happening in Texas up to this point, and will probably continue, at least in the negotiations we're talking about, for a little while longer, it almost seems like.
Yeah, I think that's right. I also think this case does have some broader implications. Every time the U.S. Supreme Court is asked to decide an Indian law issue, tribes and their advocates kind of hold their breath to see if the Supreme Court is going to change course and start making decisions that are not favorable to tribal interests. And so I think tribes are probably gratified today to see a decision that is aligned with tribes and hope for more of that going forward. Justice Amy Coney Barrett was in the majority in this case, and I thought that was interesting because before she became a Supreme Court justice, she had not been involved in very many Indian law cases, and so we didn't really know kind of how she was going to approach these issues. This is the second case this week in which she has voted with the majority on making a decision that is favorable to tribal sovereignty and tribal jurisdiction. So I think that's a reason for cautious optimism about Justice Barrett in Indian country.
In reference to that other case, then, just for our audience's gratification here, what is that other case that you're referencing?
Yeah, so that was a case that was decided earlier this week that relates to the double jeopardy clause in the U.S. Constitution. And the question there was for tribes that are prosecuting criminals using something called a CFR court, which is a federal administrative court. If an offender is prosecuted through that mechanism, does that mean that offender can't also be prosecuted in federal court? And the Supreme Court said no, that person can be prosecuted in both courts, which reaffirms just longstanding policy around criminal jurisdiction that tribes have.
So back on the case we're talking about today, directly involving, and again, styled as the Isleta del Sur Pueblo. When it comes to, you mentioned a little bit about the idea of the actual, implications on this, besides, I guess, temperament of the court, so to speak, when it comes to these issues, are there any, I guess, broader, more direct actual precedent implications when it comes to essentially tribes across the rest of the country?
So I think the answer to that is probably no, because this statute that was passed in the 1980s only applies to the Pueblo and the Alabama Cusheta that we talked about earlier. I do think the way that the court made its decision potentially has implications for other tribes, because when it was faced with this question about what does this statute from the 1980s mean, the first thing that it did was looked to its own Supreme Court decisions from that era. And then a lot of the reasoning of the majority was based on the idea that Congress knew what the Supreme Court was doing with Indian law at the time and used language in this statute that was designed to echo what the Supreme Court had said about gaming. And so that's where this potentially has an effect elsewhere, is not this specific statute, but just that framework for how the court will analyze similar issues that pop up in other areas.
So not even by my reading here, not even just precedent being looked at, but literally the impact of precedent on the law that this is now creating precedent on.
Yes, I think that's right.
Interesting enough here. Okay, again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Ben Kappelman, partner with Dorsey and Whitney. Again, if you want to find out any information about them, the work they do, dorsey.com, DORSEY.com here. So on that idea of the good faith negotiations we were talking about last segment and what that will actually mean in order to open up the possibility of that class 3 gaming you were discussing here, what people might consider, true casino kind of activities, given both the fact that this was the state of Texas and issues involving this going back literal decades at this point, and the idea that there is supposed to be, with the other federal law now fully in effect upon this decision relating to, again, Indian gaming, what would you expect might happen next, or even just realistically be possible, given the fact that, among other things, our current governor of the state was one of the attorney general at the time of some of these major decisions being continued to be pursued. So even just politically speaking, if that's even something that can be forecasted at this point.
Sure, and I don't know what Texas's reaction will be if the Pueblo decide that they want to approach the state about negotiating a Class 3 gaming compact. Under this decision, the Pueblo have the ability to initiate that negotiation, and under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, Texas would have to participate in that negotiation in good faith. Because the federal courts had previously said that Texas didn't have to do that. That was what the state needed to not engage. That changes today with the Supreme Court's decision, and I think if the Pueblo initiate those discussions, then I would assume Texas would participate as it is required to do.
So when we're talking about those kind of negotiations, since this will be a essentially brand new experience for both the tribe in this area and pretty much anyone else who lives in the area that might be affected by it, how does that look? What does that take? What kind of timelines could be expected if there is to be forward movement?
So fundamentally, the compact negotiations are about two sovereigns, so a sovereign state and a sovereign Indian nation, negotiating with each other to come up with effectively a business arrangement for how the tribe might engage in Class 3 gaming. And that's influenced by lots of things, including the attitudes towards gambling in a particular state, the interests of other gaming entities who may or may not, want to see another casino entering the market. And then also what kind of concessions a tribe might be willing to make by way of sharing that Class 3 gaming revenue with the state. And so, we've got lots of states, we've got lots of tribes, and these negotiations can play out in lots of different ways. And it really depends on the kind of motivations of the sovereigns involved and whether they can come to terms.
For any other circumstance that you may or may not have been involved in, but not a kind of brand new one like this, I mean, if you were to tell someone like this is the length of time you'd expect for a process, like even or just a perspective kind of, timeline for how this thing might go forth or where it has previously been done that you all have either been involved with or been familiar with, what kind of even rough expectations could people have if, again, that is a decision made based off of what the Supreme Court has decided today?
I think this is something that's going to play out over years. These are complicated arrangements, and they do require multiple levels of approval by the state, by the tribe, by the federal government. And so this is not a speedy process. And then if the Pueblo decide that the state is not complying with its obligation to negotiate in good faith, then the Pueblo can seek help from the federal government in bringing the state to the table. And as you'd expect, that would elongate the time frame. So I wouldn't expect Class 3 gaming to appear overnight in El Paso. But if it's something that the Pueblo decide they want to work towards, that could become a possibility over the next few years.
Okay. So we'll see what, of course, comes out of this decision fresh today. So I'm sure a lot more reaction will be coming here. So again, we've been talking right now with Ben Kappelman, partner with Dorsey and Whitney. Again, if you want to find out anything about them, the work they do, dorsey.com. That's DORSEY.com. So Ben, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us, lay out some of these issues and what rough expectations we can have on the, again, fresh heels of this decision here today.
Hey, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Absolutely glad to have you on here. Got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we will get to more of the calls, more of the comments, and all that good stuff on the line here. So if you want to leave your call and get on the line, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking El Paso freeways, Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at the I-10 on-ramp, stalled vehicles blocking the right shoulder. Eastbound Liberty Expressway at Airport Road, a minor crash there has multi-vehicles off to the right. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Zaragoza, a stalled vehicle still blocking that turnaround lane. And an injury accident on Mesa Street northbound north of Schuster at Blanchard Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blind shades and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop Blindster today and save big. Blindster.com.
Have you thought about dental implants? Has someone told you that dental implants cost $3, $4, $5, $6,000 per tooth? Please do not pay that much money. Instead, go to 1995implants.com, the El Paso dental office where beautiful, top-quality, long-lasting dental implants are as low as $1,995 per tooth, including the implant, abutment, and crown. Plus, we offer a free consultation with the dentist, free standard x-rays, and convenient financing plans to fit your budget. At 1995implants.com, dental implants are very affordable. So get rid of your cracked teeth, missing teeth, and loose, old, wobbly dentures, and get the amazing new smile that you've been wanting. 1995implants.com is conveniently located right here in El Paso. For more information, please see our website, 1995implants.com. That's 1995implants.com. Se habla español.
New on Curiosity Stream, he allows them their riches
Putin has to be the richest of the rich.
in exchange for their loyalty.
The oligarchs have supported someone for president that they underestimated.
The illicit affair between Russia's elite and the man who rules them on Putin and the oligarchs. And World War II Normandy, an obscure battle training session takes a tragic turn. Uncover the one secret military catastrophe on the secret D-Day disaster. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Radio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. This spring, you can share your own observations about nature with scientists and play a critical role in scientific discovery by adding to their data collection. Discover more about citizen science programs such as monitoring weather, observing plants and animals, and more. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Coming up on the Ben Ferguson podcast, Republicans sell you out on your Second Amendment rights. So who are these fake Republicans? I'm going to expose them all so that you can stand up for your rights by demanding they back down. Download the Ben Ferguson podcast now.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media channels we're supposed to be up on here. I'm worried that I'm losing a couple of comments here, but in case we're not, well, you can always listen to us in the various ways that are just listed there. Do have some comments coming in, of course, here. RJ saying, man, this decision took forever. It helps to hire lobbyists on your side. I think I found the date. I think it was 94. Certainly in the 90s that this case started. And I actually did have a chance in my own right to, since I was a very young person when that first started, once I got into my professional career, actually sit in on some of the local federal court proceedings on this. Get into that probably here in the next hour as well. Blanca Jimenez saying, so basically it's about the state wanting its cut. Yes and no. Essentially, well, if you want to be more specific about it, the state of Texas wanted all of it, not even just a cut. But with these new negotiations that could come out of this, if well, the tribe then decides to go for it. It could potentially happen, but in answer then to Kathy Kodry's kind of statement that seriously more casinos, RJ says, not yet, Kathy, just bingo and pull tabs. Folks need to keep their money for now. Not if you're doing the, well, bingo and pull tabs, which pull tabs I just don't get. I mean, is it basically scratch offs? Do I have the right idea in mind? Because I'm never actually sure I've seen one of those machines, among other things here. Marky Mandingo also chiming in, asking if he can borrow a few thousand point 0.00000, a bunch of zeros, 1% interest. You know what? Sure. Let me know where you find that being done and tell me where to do it as well here. So that's just a few of the comments and concerns on the line here. Coming out of this next break, because we're getting close to the next one here already. We'll get to some of the calls on the line. That phone number is up right now if you are wanting to squeeze in and get in line ahead of the break. 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. RJ letting me know that, yeah, essentially it is scratchers, but I think there's also like electronic versions that like not quite slots, but seem close. I was actually, now I'm remembering it, part of what I said in on that federal case. So we'll get into that as what those arguments are and what, again, this could mean. But that's not the only thing involving big money around the area, as may have heard during the news update towards the bottom of the hour from our news partners at KFOX 14. Some potential big spending coming up, well, in the coming days involving, well, your tax dollars and the county hospital district. Just as a hint, that might be where Stephania is today. So we'll check on that and a whole lot more coming out of this next break. Again, if you're wanting to get on the line, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM, the number to call there. We'll just be back right after this top of the hour news and checking in on those national situations. Again, just recapping a few of the major stories. Yes, the Supreme Court deciding in favor of the Isleta del Sur Pueblo over the state of Texas, and essentially saying that one federal law reigns supreme and does not essentially keep the tribes of Texas separate from the rest of the country. Interesting development there, but furthermore, also about the interest rates, the economy, supply chains, and demand. So getting into all that and a whole lot more after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Comments, calls, all that good stuff after this break. So don't go anywhere. Back after the top of the hour news here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking El Paso freeways, Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at the I-10 on-ramp, stalled vehicles blocking the right shoulder. Eastbound Liberty Expressway at Airport Road, a minor crash there has multi-vehicles off to the right. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Zaragoza, a stalled vehicle still blocking that turnaround lane. And an injury accident on Mesa Street northbound north of Schuster at Blanchard Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Are you looking for a low-rate loan to finance a used car? At Lightstream, you can get a loan to buy a used car from the dealership starting at 3.99% APR with autopay and excellent credit. Lightstream gives you the power to negotiate as an all-cash buyer. Plus, they finance vehicles other lenders won't, like older cars and classic cars.
Financing a car with Lightstream is so easy. They have no restrictions on age, model, or mileage. There are no appraisals, and they don't require collateral. I signed all the paperwork while I was at the dealership.
Get a Lightstream loan to buy a used car from your dealership with rates as low as 3.99% APR with autopay and excellent credit. Apply today at lightstream.com/easy and get an additional interest rate discount. That's lightstream.com/EASY. Lightstream.com/easy.
Subject to credit approval. Rates range from 3.99% APR to 9.49% APR and include a 0.5% autopay discount. Lowest rate requires excellent credit. Terms and conditions apply and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com/easy for more information.
I'll never forget the call that my only son had been killed instantly by a distracted driver on her cell phone. Please hang up and drive.
Heads up, Texas. Using your phone behind the wheel can be deadly. Talk, text, crash. Brought to you by TxDOT.
No word in the English language is less convincing than probably.
Are you sure we should get matching tattoos on our first date?
Sure. We'll probably stay together.
Probably? It's been 23 minutes since I ate. I can probably swim.
You should wait 30 minutes.
Okay, now tell me what to do. Cannonball! Cramp! Oh, I have a cramp.
I can probably hit the green from here.
Probably.
Can I get a mulligan?
Ready to go?
Hey, are you sure you're okay to drive?
Yeah, I'm pretty sober.
Yeah, I'm probably okay. Probably okay isn't okay, especially when it comes to drinking and driving. If you're drinking, call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. More interest rate hikes are being forecast by the Federal Reserve. That word came from the central bank as it announced a 0.75% increase that's designed to tame inflation. Speaking to reporters, Fed Chair Jerome Powell described the move as an unusually large one. Despite this, Wall Street saw gains to close out today's trading session. Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine for kids under 5 is moving closer to FDA authorization. Lisa Taylor reports.
This comes as the FDA's Committee of Vaccine Experts voted to recommend the Moderna shots for use in young children. The committee will soon vote on Pfizer's vaccine for kids under 5 as well. The White House COVID coordinator said parents can look to get their kids under the age of 5 vaccinated as early as Tuesday.
The California man accused of plotting to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh is under federal indictment in Maryland. A grand jury returned an indictment charging Nicholas John Roski with attempting to assassinate a justice of the United States. The U.S. will receive another baby formula shipment this week. First reported by CNN, the White House will transport formula from Switzerland in a new Operation Fly formula mission. The Biden administration said it'll include over 44,000 pounds of Nestle and Alphamino specialty formula. It'll serve mostly hospitals, home health companies, and WIC programs. The contempt of Congress case against former Trump advisor Steve Bannon will go on. Bannon was hit with those charges for refusing to comply with a subpoena from the House committee investigating last year's Capitol riot. The White House is trying to curb soaring gas prices.
The president has taken historic actions to address Putin's price hike.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said President Biden is releasing 1 million barrels of oil per day from the Strategic Oil Reserve. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. A South Texas woman is about to become the first Mexican-born U.S. Congresswoman. Republican Mayra Flores won a special election yesterday for U.S. House District 34. The 36-year-old was originally born in Burgos, Mexico, moved to America when she was 6, and eventually became a naturalized American citizen. She's married to a Customs and Border Protection agent. Flores replaces Democrat Filemon Vela. The state of California will pay a $51 million settlement in connection with a 2018 mass shooting at a veterans home in Yountville. Daniel Martindale reports.
A former patient shot and killed 3 female employees before turning the gun on himself. The settlement covers claims made in 4 cases filed by the families of the 3 victims. 2 wrongful death lawsuits were filed in federal court in San Francisco. Other lawsuits related to the shooting are still pending. The shooter was a 36-year-old Army veteran who suffered from severe mental health issues and PTSD. I'm Daniel Martindale.
New Jersey is launching a $2 billion tax relief effort. Natalie Migliori has more.
Governor Murphy says money from the state's Anchor program will deliver direct relief to 2 million property owners and renters.
We all know that property taxes put pressure on our middle class and working families on a good day, but the pressure they are facing now during a time of hyper global inflation is even greater.
Homeowners will be eligible for up to $1,500, while renters would receive up to $400.
Security video inside a Kansas City area home shows the family dog turning on the kitchen stove and starting a fire. The fire in a Kansas City suburb severely damaged the house. Video shows one of the family's 2 dogs stepping on the stovetop touch panels and turning on the burner under a pan with grease in it. Firefighters rescued the dogs, but the kitchen is a total loss. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Make this the year you go to our iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Right now, Capital One cardholders get first dibs on tickets to our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival. Only available while supplies last or until Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. So don't miss it. Plus, add a Capital One access pass to your purchase to attend a VIP event with a private performance from Avril Lavigne. Only available during the cardholder presale.
Presale tickets are limited and will go fast at iHeartRadio.com/Capital One.
This report is sponsored by the Ben Ferguson Podcast.
Coming up on the Ben Ferguson Podcast, Republicans sell you out on your Second Amendment rights. So who are these fake Republicans? I'm going to expose them all so that you can stand up for your rights by demanding they back down. Download the Ben Ferguson Podcast now.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer: regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is a leading cancer killer, but it can be prevented with regular screening starting at 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today. Visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
Being aware of the world around you is important.
When it comes to news, yes, I am.
So we're feeding your need to know 24/7 at the top and bottom of the hour.
I like to know what's going on in my locality, abroad.
Events of the world.
Fairly so. Yeah, I'm pretty connected.
Or down the street.
For the most part, I know what's going on.
You know, I need to be aware and what to look out for. And I'm real cautious, so yeah, I need to have that.
It's what we do. News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media platforms we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. One of the reasons we've mentioned all of these platforms, not that there's ever going to be a quiz, though bonus points if you can get them all, is that we're in those places so you can get at us, hear what we have to say, what the discussion is, and also add your feedback. A lot of people doing that over on the social media, delving into some of those further here in just a second. But also, we got that phone line open right now, as we usually do at this point during the show. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Taking those calls throughout the rest of the hour here in the second hour of the program, locked in here for Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM. Also dropping those reacts over on the social media, which we do appreciate, just because it helps with those algorithmic things that we got to deal with when we dip a tone to those platforms. Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Flaco Jimenez, and Calvin Williams, we do appreciate it. Had a brief interruption over there on that stream, but should be back up and running. If you have any difficulty getting back to us, let us know here. Some interesting questions and comments coming in here. Catherine Codry, yeah, unhappy with, I believe, referring to the current president there, heading to Saudis to beg for oil, and referencing mean tweets and $2 fuel prices. Marky Mandingo, in an unenviable situation here, just got 2 new evaporative coolers, and it's still 78 in the house. Let's just say, so delving a foot into the real estate market here more recently, and probably never again with the way the interest rates are going now. Maybe not. We'll see what the future brings. In any case, it used to be that, well, swamp coolers was essentially standard, and evaporative coolers, the swamp coolers, of course, but then refrigerated air was considered a premium product. But that the change has been over recent years anyway, to maybe say that, well, more than not, that evaporative cooler, well, let's just say that the actual refrigerated air might be the standard, and evaporative being considered substandard at this point. Now, it's also, frankly, still in this market, a lot of what you can get away with. And also another interesting longer comment he led about that won't show up on screen here, as it's a little bit too long, but you can, of course, see it over on the social media, particularly the Facebook page here, on the idea of the interaction of particularly the U.S. government and settlement with Native Americans. You would think the U.S. government would allow them to do whatever they want on their land, and referencing the New Mexico situation as well. Augustine Pimentel saying, in reference to those interest rates, no borrowing. Yeah, that's probably going to be happening here more than a little bit. So that's some of those interesting conversations and situations we're discussing here. And Flaco Jimenez saying, yeah, should have gone refrigerated. And John Browsleton also chiming in, this is Texas. You have to pay the state if you want to do something like gamble. The local tribes all have Mexican names. We're trying to gamble without state permission. But again, it wasn't exactly a state permission. It was Texas saying, no, there's none allowed. Again, I did have a chance to sit in on some of the federal proceedings as this case was entering, I guess at that point, its second decade, or well into its third decade, I guess at that point, of the actual debates and discussions going on it. And so part of the issue there was about the nature of the games. Now we're going to get real deep in the weeds here for a second, but some of the proceedings I actually got to see was debating on what is the nature of the gambling happening there. Is it sweepstakes, which would put it maybe closer to the idea of what is possible or what is, well, otherwise allowable, closer on the scale to bingo, theoretically speaking, than it would be to, say, a traditional slot machine. But let's just say there's a lot of phrasing of like walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, smells like a duck kind of situations with this, because the actual legal definitions get real fiddly once you really zoom in on them, including the idea of, okay, say you have something that looks exactly like a slot machine. Same bells, whistles, noises, etc. But instead of there being a random chance of the reels going through, that the technical management of it is that it is a sweepstakes, meaning that there is a set of entries that it is drawing from for each pool, and there is a quote-unquote entertaining display that you are then presented as the results of your entry are then pulled, but then there is not necessarily a replacement. So selection with or without replacement was the real legal phrase of the day here. I know I'm getting just super deep dive into this, and no, there will not be a test, but essentially what the state at that point was arguing that it looked exactly like a slot machine, but what the tribe and its attorneys were arguing at that point is that, well, it wasn't technically a slot machine because it wasn't that you could get that same entry again, though there could be multiple sweepstakes running at the same time, multiple sets of entries. So yes, it may have been possible to get the exact same one, and Robbie Flores is letting us know, yes, you're a duck, but in this case, I don't think you're a slot machine. So yeah, the whole, what does it look like? What is the sense does it give you? Are the noises sounding like it? So there have been at least some commentary about how long this case has been stretching on and how detailed has been giving here. Yeah, it's been long here. RJ saying if it hadn't, the lobby groups hadn't betrayed the tribes, I wonder if there would be class 3 at the Rock. Again, that decision today, the decision coming down 5-4 with Neil Gorsuch writing for the majority in Isla del Sur Pueblo versus Texas, would make that, well, the path to it is not completely closed off as it has previously been. John Brazelton, I'll fully agree with you on this point. You want to do something in Texas, you have to pay the man. Yeah, that's a pretty good like underlying description for just about any state agency, because I can't think of one that doesn't have that, unless like real hook or crook kind of moments have happened there where like, well, coming into the pandemic, the whole to-go alcohol, you would never have thought that was going to happen under like TABC regulations, among others, except for, well, it finally did here. But enough on some of the comments here. We got more that can come in here, but let's get back to those phone lines is what I want to say. That number to call again, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Do we have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now? Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, yay on that decision. I'm glad the Tiguas will get to do some gambling. Now, I really find that, again, this is another example of the great hypocrisy of the Republican Party. You know, we have a state lottery. So we have gambling. If people want to throw their money away, they can throw it away by buying an unlimited number of lotto tickets, you know. And so they say it's bad. The Republicans say it's bad for some reason to have that kind of gambling, but not this other kind of gambling, you know. Now, they're also hypocrites because they preach and teach about the sanctity of private property. And yet, not for these Indians, who they're not going to allow them to do other kinds of gambling on their land like other Indian tribes throughout the nation can. This is the only tribes that can in the whole U.S. is the ones in Texas, because we got a bunch of racists in government in Texas, you know, right there in Austin. And then Texas had a history of eliminating the Indians from Texas, the native Texans, rather Americans that were here. It was a policy to get rid of them. And they did a pretty good job, actually, of doing it, apparently. Just a couple of tribes left. And so, I mean, they really ought to let people throw their money away. They let them much gambling and improving the area around them. But
there are a lot of different issues when it comes to Texas and native populations. We'll freely admit and agree to that here. And we got a little bit frozen over on the social media, but we should be back up there now. Having some, the tubes are full today, I think is the message we're getting. So we'll certainly keep taking those comments over there, but don't forget about those other ways you can also tune in with us if you're having issues on those locations. But yeah, and also to say that Texas was, I mean, the entire point of the state of Texas, to my understanding, was essentially that we do not allow casino-style gambling. We do not allow that level, and trying to draw a distinction between what they were offering with that. But also, I mean, as the interview just said, you are technically incorrect with the idea of native peoples across the rest of the states not being able to do this and only Texas being different. Hawaii was given as the example of a state that said, no, we don't want gambling of any type, even our own, so therefore there shall be no gambling. That is also a decision a state could make, and in this case, Texas did not make that, laying the groundwork for this case, among other things. But also, there being different laws in place only applying to Texas. Yeah, that's a little weird and definitely before my time here. So, thank you for the point in the call, even though I find myself disagreeing with you on some of the major points there. Let's get, tell you what, we got to take that break right now, try to make sure the tubes aren't too full. But coming out of this break, we'll take more calls, more comments, more everything as we do here on Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. The number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got a couple of stalled vehicles on the I-10 westbound approaching Airway Boulevard at Westmoreland. They're off to the right. Liberty Expressway eastbound at Airport Road. The minor crash from earlier still has multiple vehicles off to the right. Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at the I-10 on-ramp. A stalled vehicle there blocking the right shoulder. And a crash west of Patriot, north of Fred Wilson at Lackland and Broadus Avenue. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples' free PC tune-up event is this Saturday and Sunday. Bring your existing PC to any Staples to improve your startup and operating speeds and junk file removal. Plus, get free tune-up software good for a year. Valid in-store on existing Windows devices only. Appointments encouraged by phone or in-store. Staples.
Have you thought about getting dental implants? Has someone told you that dental implants cost $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 per tooth? Please do not pay that much money. Instead, go to 1995implants.com, the El Paso dental office where beautiful, top-quality, long-lasting dental implants are as low as $1,995 per tooth, including the implant, abutment, and crown. Plus, we offer a free consultation with the dentist, free standard x-rays, and convenient financing plans to fit your budget. At 1995implants.com, dental implants are very affordable. So, get rid of your cracked teeth, missing teeth, and loose old wobbly dentures and get the amazing new smile that you've been wanting. 1995implants.com is conveniently located right here in El Paso. For more information, please see our website, 1995implants.com. That's 1995implants.com. Se habla español.
And Doug. Chances are you're jamming in your car right now. And since Liberty Mutual customizes car insurance so you only pay for what you need, Limu and I are going to show you some safe car dance moves. Hit it. Everybody, check your blind spots real quick. Now hands on the wheel. Put them 10 in 2 and move your head like a bird do. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Hi, I'm Brooke Burke. Do you ever consider just how important your feet are? They're quite literally the foundation of your body. And if you don't take care of them, you're asking for problems. That's why I wear Skechers' new Arch Fit shoes. Skechers teamed up with doctors to make a shoe that provides complete all-day foot support. They use 20 years of data to design a podiatrist-certified insole that distributes pressure across the arch, providing incredible stability and extreme comfort. Get Skechers' new Arch Fit at a Skechers store near you, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish shoes are sold.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on the News Radio 690 KTSM, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, the iHeartRadio app, of course, on air. If you're out there driving right now, make sure you're staying safe on those roads here, as it hopefully your tires aren't quite melting, though some of the conversation going on about the heat in houses. Hope y'all doing well with that. Kathy Codry also saying, and on the situations here, that I'll pass on the casinos and spend my money on retail therapy. I mean, more power to you if you like that here. Marky Mandingo letting us know on his air cooler situation. Didn't have the 10K, didn't have 5K. They use way less electricity, but no water, a real issue we discussed here. I mean, good luck to you. I hope you got a lot of fans. A lot of fans needed in this weather. Hopefully that will continue going on. But a lot of comments coming in over on the social media. Ion Grimm, Kathy Codry, RJ, Flaco Jimenez, James Ratcliffe, Marky Mandingo, as previously mentioned, Fred Marquez, John Brazelton, Calvin Williams, Robbie Flores, and more a little bit earlier. Also dropping those reacts. We do appreciate Maria Coleman, Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Calvin Williams. Just helps with all those algorithmic things. Some questioning for some previous callers here. You're for creating products and wealth. Isn't that capitalism? I thought you were against American capitalism, you know, the kind Trump supporting and Biden is trying to destroy here. Again, some interesting analysis there. And of course, the interest rate increase, that 0.75% interest rate increase announced by the Federal Reserve today. Another way to put it, the 75 basis points, which makes it sound a little bit more impacting and probably closer to what it'll actually do as we see rates continue to climb and borrowing and money getting therefore more expensive. All the downstream impact coming from that probably going to be significant. Yes, we'll probably see impacts to demand being lessened, but not necessarily because there's less need out there, but just because people can't actually afford to buy things. Not like a totally great situation in my estimation, but here we are. But let's go back to those phone calls right now. Again, that number to call if you want to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM, as Fred Marquez also leaves his react over on the Facebook page. Do appreciate it. We have Judy on the west side here with us right now. Judy, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Andrew, you've been talking about gambling at the Tigua Indian Reservation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to talk about gambling with the future of El Paso. And Veronica Escobar was one of 27 Democrats who voted against enhanced security for Supreme Court justices. This was after the attempted assassination of Brett Kavanaugh and the doxing of Amy Coney Barrett of her children's, the school where her 7 children go, and also the church where she goes. And we need to vote Veronica Escobar out of office. Absolutely. Just absolutely get rid of this woman. Just vote her out of office. We've got a wonderful candidate, Irene Armendariz Jackson, who is the Republican candidate for Congress 16. And I'm telling you, El Paso, you better get on the ball and vote for a really good candidate, because Veronica Escobar does not have your good interest at heart. She is all for herself and for power, and no, she needs to go. And we need to vote for Irene Armendariz Jackson.
Yep, both previous guests on the show here. Of course, if you want to go and see what they've said when we have been interviewing them, you can, of course, go and see our archive on really any of those social media channels. But, I mean, yeah, getting people out to vote here, I mean, I have never been shy about my idea that politicians should never feel comfortable. They should never be, you know what, I think I've got a lock on this. I think I'll be fine. I don't really need to worry about what the constituents think, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. So anytime that ends up being the position, and when we start talking about longer running serving members in, again, any seat, it becomes a level of concern I increasingly have about, okay, how much are they actually concerned about keeping up appearances as opposed to fully doing the work here? So strong and robust challenges to any position is one I fully support there. So again, I have also long called for people getting out and voting, because, yeah, this last one we had just under 5%, which is just woof. We can't keep that going.
Well, you know, Veronica has been on, I've heard her interview on your program, and it's always like, well, that's a good question, Andrew. Baloney. I mean, she doesn't want to answer the any hard questions. So I think, I mean, I'm just saying out loud and proud, El Paso, she needs to be voted out of office come November. We've got Irene Armendariz Jackson.
Well, and certainly entitled to your opinion there. So thank you very much for the point and the call. You have a good one.
Thank you.
All right. I mean, yeah, getting people out to vote, you're never going to hear me say, no, guys, we got too many votes going on. You don't bother going to the polls. That's going to be like my cry for help. That's how I'm going to know I've been like kidnapped. And if you were watching online, I'd be blinking SOS at the same time here. That's how you know I've been replaced by a doppelganger and something is seriously wrong. And that is my cry for help, because if we had 100% net for the next election, I wouldn't even then be saying, we've got enough votes. Don't vote anymore. We're good on votes. I'd be saying, cool, let's do it again. That would be what I am saying absolutely here. James Velasquez saying, when I vote, I want an encrypted, traceable number to track my vote. Interesting position if you're talking about remote voting. But here in El Paso, specifically, the way they got it set up, it ends up being both the physical ballot with the digital tracking on it. Because if you've been voting lately, you may have noticed that you get that printout that has your votes on it, and then it gets scanned into the machine. So it ends up being both of the systems included here. I know there's been a lot of conversation about specific voting systems, and I think it is important to note, of course, how it's done here. But we got more calls on the line here, so again, thank you for the point in the call. Right now, we do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew. Wouldn't it be a lot easier if the Biden White House and the Democrats would just come out and tell the truth about their Build Back Better policy? We're going to, and this is what I think they should say. We are going to hurt you until you do what we say. Buy an electric car and put solar panels on your roof. And if you can't afford it, that's your problem. Use the drugs available to you and watch violent videos. Learn to eat and enjoy eating bugs. Don't worry, by 2030, you'll own nothing and like it. And enjoy the pain, because there is a lot more to come, and no one in the White House or the Democrats gives a flying flip about you.
I mean, simple answer to your question there. Why don't they come out and say it? I mean, the phrase I think about more than I probably should, but it comes up enough is that, how do you know a politician is lying? Their lips are moving. So, no, they're never going to come out and fully say what, if they have obscured intentions, what those actually are. But you can start telling what the actual thought process is by their actions. Actions speak much, much louder than words. So a couple of things. Of course, pain points is something that comes up very easily when we're talking about this interest rate hikes. And I am mildly sure that this won't be even the last one, even if this has been the highest single time one. And this is probably going to irk more than a few people. We'll see what the actual outcome of it is. Of course, the Dow ended higher, but whether or not that actually is reflective of what it means for the average person is very debatable. But yeah, when it comes to the idea of what should be produced, what needs to be done, the invocation of the Defense Production Act, as has been done by the administration within recent weeks here, shows very clearly what the priorities are going forth and the statements that go along with them. I mean, it's not even that obfuscated, even if they're not coming out and saying it maybe as explicitly as you might like there.
Yeah. Also, isn't it sort of poetic justice that the suburban white women that voted and put Biden in office now can't find tampons for themselves now?
Yep, I have heard of that. Apparently, my house, we're now referring to them as retirement sanitary products. Is that's what's going to let us to retire comfortably because we apparently have a stock of them that I wasn't aware of. Yeah, that has been a situation.
And last but not least, let's go, Brandon.
Fair enough here. I appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one.
Thank you.
I mean, the pain points, if it is you're going to comply with us otherwise, any politician who thinks that is going to work, I think misunderstands the way the process still, at least for the moment, works, as long as people keep paying attention, that if you tick enough people off, they're probably not going to vote for you anymore. I think at least locally speaking here, and James Radcliffe is accurate, we never get a number to keep to track the vote. I do think that is important, but more streamlining, more putting money into the voting system, I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to, because being able to absolutely know, it does get reflected if you are an active voter or not. That is a matter of public record, so you can tell if your vote was cast, though the whole secrecy of the ballot then might put a little bit of impinging on there. It wouldn't be something I'd be opposed to exploring, I guess is what I'm saying. But again, the idea of they're just like, oh, well, you're just going to have to grin and bear it. I guess maybe it's a weirdly optimistic thing on my part that I don't think enough people are just going to be like, well, what you going to do? As opposed to, hell, just to put it even, okay, optimistic yet darker is a weird sentiment to go over, but that's kind of how I feel at this point. Let's just say I am not going to be surprised, though very unhappy, if there end up being, say, as soon as maybe even this summer, but definitely into the fall and then maybe over the winter, a potential for, riots over resources in this country. Get coin flip, whether it might be energy prices, gasoline, or even just food supplies and the cost of them. And let's just say, whenever that kind of thing happens, the administration and party in control tends to no longer be after that, except for something truly extraordinary happening. But we'll have to take more about that when we get after this break here, because we're due for that next one here. Of course, we are taking those phone calls, those comments, and all the ways you can get at us here on Talk El Paso. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. That number again, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. The Tigua tribe in El Paso can legally operate bingo-based games at their Speaking Rock Entertainment Center. That's according to a ruling today by the U.S. Supreme Court. The 5-4 ruling is a legal victory for the Isleta del Sur Pueblo. They've been in a legal battle with the state of Texas for the past 30 years over the legality of gambling on tribal land. A request to use hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer money without voter approval was discussed by a meeting held by officials with UMC's Board of Managers. The managers talked about asking El Paso County commissioners for approval in a notice that would issue certificates of obligation. KFOX 14 obtained a recording of that meeting and learned that the certificates of obligation requested would be in the amount of up to $400 million. A hospital spokesman today said the exact amount would be revealed Thursday in a meeting with county commissioners. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound at East Paisano Drive, an accident is blocking the right shoulder and slowing traffic. About 10-minute delays in that area. I-10 eastbound at Trowbridge, another injury accident with police responding. A stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder on Trans Mountain Summit Pass near Gateway Boulevard North, and an injury accident northbound Dyer Street at Diana Drive. Try Wren Avenue or Rutherford Drive as alternates. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
After unseasonably hot weather over the last few days, our temperatures will start to cool with numbers closer to seasonal values. Expect a mostly clear and quiet night with light winds and temperatures in the mid-70s. Coming up tonight, we'll talk about cooler temperatures heading our way, plus we could see a few more storms across the area. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Pool season is here, but open roles got you underwater? Check out Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
New on Curiosity Street, she was a loving wife, a devoted mother. She also stole atomic secrets and gave them to the Soviets. Meet the woman whose deception kick-started the Cold War on the spy who stole the atom bomb. And
what if they catch you? Then I shall be shot.
they're coming! Come back! Relive history's most death-defying escapes. It's Impossible Escapes, Civil War. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit CuriosityStream.
Hey, it's Mario Courtney Lopez, and we know life is better together.
Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to make life's moments amazing.
We are all getting together more, and Smart Mouth's 24-hour power of fresh breath with just 2 rinses a day keeps us from worrying about bad breath in those up-close moments.
Go to smartmouth.com/radio to save 20% or find Smart Mouth at your favorite store to give you confidence as we get closer to each other.
Remember to make life's moments better together with Smart Mouth at smartmouth.com/radio.
Wondering how our country can get out of this mess? Then you should be listening to Red Pilled America, the best storytelling show in the country. This week we tell the story of how our culture has shifted so far to the left. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media channels, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. If you want to get at us on any of those, you are more than welcome to as we continue our conversation about the things that affect us here in the borderland, and, well, let's just say a whole lot more. So if you're wanting to get us there, and also dropping some of those likes over there on the pages, we just appreciate all of it. Let's just put it that way here. So if you're wanting to get at us, get it on the commentary. Again, we have that phone line open right now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Full up at the moment, but we'll squeeze in what we can before the end of the program here. Don't, of course, forget about those other ways you can get at us, even between shows. Get the pound 250, working better than not, it seems, lately, though. Apparently there are some finagling things. We'll see about the future of it, but we definitely have that talkback feature over on the iHeartRadio app, and if you haven't gotten at us there, let me just give you a couple of good reasons to do it. A, you can leave a message as long as you got the app and signal, day or night. Just make sure you're doing it over on our actual channel there, the 690 channel, that is. But also, right now, if you enter it, and this is what it looks like if you're actually on the page, on the stream, it'll be that little red button at the bottom looking like a microphone. Could also end up looking, again, just depending on how you are on the 690 page, looking like more towards the middle or top of the page, with, again, that red microphone button. That's the talk back button. You can leave us a message day or night. And right now, through the end of this week, leave your message over there. You'll be entered into the drawing to win that next gift card to Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa for their menu of services. The Father's Day giveaway brought to you by News Radio 690 KTSM and Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa, the official hair and beard sponsor of the show. If you like what you see there, you'll definitely love what they can do for you with their expert hair and beard grooming. So make sure to leave your comments over there. Again, fast, free, easy, and again, you could win. So just keep that in mind here. But let's get back to those phone lines right now. A lot of commentary coming in over on the socials as well. But let's get to those phone lines. We do have Jerry on the west side here with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
Did you not say that the Tigua situation started in 1994? The ruling in 1994, is that correct?
Well, that's the initial filing of these cases. The earliest date I could find, I know it's the 90s. I'm not sure if that was a corollary case at all, because this has not been a simple legal process by any means. Again, I was not joking when I said most of my lifetime so far. It's definitely the majority.
Okay, the reason why I'm saying, because wasn't Ann Richards the governor at the time? George Bush was elected in November of 1994. He would not have taken office until 1995. So I'm just making a point that Raul in the Northeast is wrong again. So he's not as smart as you think he is.
Fair enough.
Today, we have officially entered into a recession. This is the second quarter. There was no 0% economic, 0% annual rate quarter shrinkage of the economy. So today, this is the second quarter. We are officially in recession, according to Zero Hedge and the PJ Media. So we are not doing good, America. Remember to vote this next November. Thank you. Have a good day.
Oh, sure thing. Thanks for pointing the call there. Yeah, it's the economy, stupid. I have a lot of signs I need to keep around me just to remind me of all the phrases that relate to the issues we talk about. But it's the economy, stupid, is very much an impactful one. It was actually an interesting allusion that was made to me about because some were saying, just to bring judges up another painful issue at the moment, the January 6th hearing, there's been some commentary, not necessarily from this audience, but that no one cares because the economy is doing so bad. There was an allusion made that during the Nixon proceedings that inflation was actually at 11% at that point in time. So, but also you can see what happened with some of those elections that came around there. I mean, there's a couple of different levels of focus that can be had by the American public, but the pain points, as we've kind of been coming down to, as those increase, let's just say satisfaction and willingness to keep existing parties in power or long-term elected officials in power tends to decrease here. Yeah, RJ saying that the recession is coming along with food shortages, Mad Max, when people are spending 50% more on food. We'd be beyond that point. Again, I think we'd be well into riots and just increased criminality well before that point, to be perfectly honest with you. And Kathy Codry saying $4 price hike on my favorite coffee. Now imagine if it's just not even available and we're starting to paint a interesting picture. I not to exactly pat myself in the back because I don't really want it in this case, but to say that I've been saying for a minute here to keep yourself, batten down your own hatches, because I don't see this getting simpler. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, to be perfectly honest with you all. As a completely non-financial, non-legal advice person, just telling you the factors I look at when I try to gauge availability and why we focus more than a little bit on this program on, shall we say, regional resiliency, what kind of local resources we might need to be relying a little bit more on. I'm hoping it's not the case, but, hopes and dreams and so on and so forth. Getting back to the calls here right now. We do have Stephen on the east side here with us right now. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Hey, good afternoon.
Afternoon there. What's on your mind?
So I was just thinking about kind of how we got to where we are today. And when we grew up in the, or at least when I grew up in the 80s and Ronald Reagan was around and he was teaching people about, having a smaller government with not such a huge reach. The smallest government governs best and those kinds of things. And it by not learning those lessons, I think that's kind of how we got where we are today. A lot of people praise Social Security, but a lot of studies that have been done that says that Social Security, if you would have just put that money, that same amount in a mutual fund, you would have gotten 3 to 4 times the amount of return. Meanwhile, Social Security gets raided by, government officials who spend it on something else. Education, our country is way behind in education, and that is government-run education, of course. And of course, when they got involved with the student loan business, suddenly prices skyrocketed because they have got these guaranteed loans on the student loans, and all the tuitions went up because the higher education institutions knew that they could raise it and they would have guaranteed loans by the government. Government got involved in healthcare, and of course that caused the prices to skyrocket when it comes to healthcare. And then so later on, Donald Trump comes along and he says, well, we're going to do the things that the government is supposed to do, which is secure the borders and make sure we don't have chaos on our borders. And we are spending too much money on all these overseas ventures, and these NATO countries aren't paying their fair share. When it comes to the security, basically the United States was paying for all the security of Europe when they should have been paying for part of their own security. So he stood up to them. He stood up to China, who was stealing our intellectual property and playing a lot of games when it comes to the international markets, and he stood up to them. But then COVID came along, and the government says, well, at least parts of the government said, we need to shut everything down. And Trump tried to stand up against that and against a lot of the spending that was associated with the shutdowns. And a lot of people who, like I said, we grew up in the 80s and we said, well, smaller government's better. The government often makes things worse. And if you shut things down, you're going to have a lot of problems with the economy. You're going to have food shortages around the world. You're going to have problems with education. These kids are going to be locked up and isolated. They're going to have mental health problems. You're going to have people who are supposed to be getting their cancer screenings. They don't get their cancer screenings, and so on and so forth. And you may end up making things worse by doing all these shutdowns and then spending along with it. The only thing that the government did that was worth anything was getting those vaccines streamlined through all the red tape that the government typically puts in the ways of vaccines. And then finally, when the Democrats, when we saw that they were going to take power, all these energy companies saw that the ESG scores were going to hurt them financially, if they shouldn't be investing in the energy sector when it comes to fossil fuels, because they were going to get hurt financially by doing so by the next administration. And that was illustrated very clearly by the shutting down of the XL pipeline. So all of those inflationary pressures were done, even though some of them were done under Donald Trump, they were done with the Congress that was Democrat during the last 2 years of his tenure, and he tried to fight against it, but they demonized him, saying he cared more about the economy than the lives of people. But I think we're going to see over the next few years that the shutdowns and the government interventions are going to kill far more people than the virus itself. So sorry for the long rant, but I just wanted a review of how we got here.
I mean, it's an important one, and one that both informs our situation and might give a hint at what might come next. I remember very vividly telling family members of mine, actually, that a lot of the things that have come out of, well, the pandemic, shutdowns associated with it, could be forecasted to a certain extent, but at a certain point, just by reading of history of similar situations, not exactly like this, but that have happened in other countries, larger impacts that we've seen like that there's a certain level of forecasting that would be able to do, but we outstripped my ability to confidently say so a while ago. There's actually an interesting book that I put down and need to go back to called Days of Rage, about the radical movements and the bombing efforts that actually happened back during like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and even beyond. So I need to revisit that and see, because seeing what has happened previously and what that might mean for us now, I think will be increasingly important, because I think that's, well, as I've said before, instability breeds further instability, and things are not trending towards stability. It does not feel like right now.
Yeah, and scientifically, when they first said, we want to flatten the curve, people should understand when you flatten the curve on a virus like that, you aren't actually decreasing the number of people who end up getting the virus. The shutdowns were never going to decrease the number of people who got the virus. The only purpose that you could maybe serve by doing that was during the first few weeks was to make it so you don't overwhelm the health system.
Mm-hmm.
But the same number of people are going to end up getting the virus when you flatten the curve. And
the
shutdowns, the studies have shown, weren't very effective in terms of saving lives. The vaccine probably did that more than anything. Again, that was maybe the one thing that was done that helped.
I would agree with you on that point here, but I do share a level of concern similar to what you're describing there about what the near and even medium and, of course, long-term future will hold related to all of this. So appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one.
You too.
All right, I think we have time for one more call on the line here before we have to hit that next break. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Just a bit of information to put out there. Texas does allow some sorts of gambling, like not only the lottery, but we do have the Texas Racing Commission, which governs pari-mutuel gambling, horse and greyhound racing.
Okay, not exactly in our area, but I mean, again, it's not that Texas has no gambling allowed. It's that, again, federally, what that case that was being decided on, of course, was about which set of federal rules apply here. There was that special set that applied to only tribes in Texas, as our guest described here. So being more in line with that, well, again, there's a lot of possibilities now. What might come out of it, well, we'll have to wait and see, but are interesting, at least to me.
Well, yeah, and I have no problem with people gambling. I mean, if you don't spend your money on one thing, you're going to spend it on another. And besides that, the federal government will take it away in taxes and give it to undocumented immigrants.
Yeah, management of our taxpayer funds are certainly a question here. Not to undercut your point there, but there's, of course, the local aspect of that coming with that potential. I am 90% sure that's what Estefania got pulled off today, that potential hundreds of millions of dollars going towards the county hospital district and those investigations there. So we'll be staying tuned on that and seeing what we can maybe bring you tomorrow on that point.
Yes, and just to make one other point, regarding Comrade Raul, back in 1993, the Democrats had the chance to legalize gambling in Texas since they controlled the House and the Texas House and the Texas Senate and the governor's mansion with Ann Richards as governor. But, as I've said before, you can write volumes of what is not revealed.
Yeah, understanding what's between the lines may be the most effective and important skill in the 21st century. Who would have thought?
No. Anyway, I turn the mic back to you. Thank you for the time.
That's the thing. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there. All right, we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, tell you what we got coming up for you on the show, of course, as we've been kind of hinting at anyway, but closing out the show, squeezing in what we can, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at East Paisano Drive. A crash there is blocking two left lanes and causing a backup. Injury accident I-10 eastbound at Trowbridge. That's got stop-and-go traffic backed up. 26-minute delays right now between the Trans Mountain and the 54 Patriot. And a crash on the Trans Mountain near the Summit Pass, westbound near mile marker 17. 3 vehicles involved. They're all off to the right. Carrie Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
How does a kid go from poverty to end up being a world-renowned brain surgeon and secretary of HUD? We're going to get into that with Dr. Ben Carson. We're going to talk about his life, the current state of affairs in the country as well. Be sure to check out The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday and Thursday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We make car buying fast, fun, and easy. And due to high demand, we need trades. So we'll do whatever it takes to get you out of your old vehicle into a new car, truck, or SUV today.
Even if you owe thousands more than your trade is worth, we want it, so you can get huge savings on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory. For a limited time, get $4,000 off MSRP on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third-row seating and up to $7,000 off select new Ram trucks. Super low 2.9% APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Dodge Charger. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make the Switch event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance on select vehicles. 0 down with approved credit. Offers not combined.
And Doug. Chances are you're jamming in your car right now. And since Liberty Mutual customizes car insurance so you only pay for what you need, Limu and I are going to show you some safe car dance moves. Hit it. Everybody, check your blind spots real quick. Now hands on the wheel. Put them 10 in 2 and move your head like a bird do. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Hi, I'm Brooke Burke. Do you ever consider just how important your feet are? They're quite literally the foundation of your body. And if you don't take care of them, you're asking for problems. That's why I wear Skechers' new Arch Fit shoes. Skechers teamed up with doctors to make a shoe that provides complete all-day foot support. They use 20 years of data to design a podiatrist-certified insole that distributes pressure across the arch, providing incredible stability and extreme comfort. Get Skechers' new Arch Fit at a Skechers store near you, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish shoes are sold.
My mom and dad are the best. Ever since they called the Early Childhood Program, I'm doing so much better, and mom and dad don't worry or stress as much as they used to. They seem a bazillion times happier, and all services are free.
Parenting isn't easy, so we signed up for the free early childhood program at the El Paso Center for Children. They taught us how to deal with COVID-19 stress and be better parents. Lots of other free services are available. Call 915-500-4105. That's 500-4105.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk, telling you about a couple of things we got coming up for you on the show here. Of course, that a little bit about approval for a potentially, some of the notes on it, up to $400 million budget for a project of expansion for being asked to El Paso County Commissioners by the local hospital district, of course, including UMC and El Paso Children's Hospital. That very much a potential meeting coming up on that tomorrow. But also, just as a side note, there's a briefing going to be held for news media from the Congresswoman Escobar's office. See what we can get from that for you as well. Bring you some of these, maybe some questions and some of those updates. So stay tuned. A lot coming up here. And a lot of comments have been coming in this whole time. But I think we have time for one more call on the line here. We do have Frankie and Messia with us on the line here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right. New poll out. 55% of the Democrats polled, 49% of the Republicans polled claim that our democracy is in danger of going off the cliff. Now, I want to tell you people out there, there is no good ending to this. You lose your democracy. I don't know what you think you're going to have in place of it, but I wouldn't think it's a very good particular proposition. So you better put that in your pipes and smoke it before you turn this whole thing upside down. What do you think of them apples?
I think it's very important, as I have long said. I don't even care how you get to the point at this particular moment in time, that as long as you are getting involved, because I don't even think we're locally in danger of it being lost to much anything besides complete inaction. So if people are going to be willing to actually stand up and do something, and by do something, I mean at the very least, go vote. Do you think it'll hurt? Do you think it'll actually cause you physical pain? Because I can guarantee you, as a regular voter, and why I get all the damn calls, texts, and letters sent to my house about make sure you vote for such and such issue. Yeah, it doesn't actually hurt, but it does take a little bit of time, a little bit of effort. and I think it'll be important, and, well, we'll help stop that anyway here. So thank you for the point in the call. We'll have to leave it there today because we are out of time for this program. I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, chime in. Y'all help really make the show what it is as we continue our mission to talk about what affects us here in the borderland. So we'll see y'all tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso traffic super slow right now, especially the I-10 westbound. It's because of a huge crash. I-10 westbound and East Paisano Drive blocking 2 left lanes. Traffic is backed up Trans Mountain to the 54 Patriot with 20-minute delays right now. On the Trans Mountain near the summit, there is an accident that's off to the right. 3 vehicles involved. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
COVID-19 research has come a long way, but there's still more to understand about how to treat COVID-19 effectively. The Active 6 study is researching existing medications to find out if they may help people with COVID feel better and get back to the things they love faster. The best part? It can all be done from the comfort of home. We'll send medications to your door, and you'll take surveys completely online. Learn more at active6study.org/radio. That's activ6study.org/radio.
The following program will be recorded.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour, and always online at KTSMradio.com. News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. A top White House economist is insisting the U.S. economy is well positioned to handle soaring inflation.
The president has said not only is bringing down inflation his number one priority, but he has laid out a very specific plan for the steps that he can take.
Brian Deese said inflation is a growing problem around the world. He cited ongoing supply chain problems that grew out of the height of the COVID pandemic. This comes as the Fed announced it would hike rates by 75 basis points and also suggested similar hikes may come next month to combat inflation. Despite that, Wall Street closed higher today, with the Dow gaining 303 points to 3668. An FDA panel is recommending both Pfizer and Moderna's